Hi everyone, and welcome to another edition of Coffee with Father James. It's great to be with you again. Last week I went grocery shopping and I couldn't believe my eyes. This, just a couple of weeks after Christmas, and I turned the corner and there on one shelf was 2 rows of Easter bunnies and 2 rows of Easter eggs. I thought, oh my goodness, can't we just take a breather, please? But time marches on, and in 3 weeks' time, we will be celebrating Ash Wednesday, and then at the end of Lent, or towards the end of Lent, we will have Palm Sunday and Holy Week. So it's upon us, And already we're beginning to ask questions around, what do we do with these traditional Catholic thingies and the things we do on those days with COVID? What happens with COVID this year? Well, just want to let you know we got a few directions from the diocese, and Ash Wednesday we'll go ahead. We don't know exactly the mass schedule right now or the size limitations, but needless to say, it's not going to be like it was in the past, so it's going to be limited. But for those who come to Mass, we are going to impose ashes in a way that doesn't require touching anyone. How will we do that, you may ask? I'm sure you are asking. Well, we're going to actually use one of the more traditional ways of ministering ashes, and that is by sprinkling them. We're going to take a handful of ashes and sprinkle them No, we're not going to do that. We're going to take it and sprinkle them on top of the head. That was a very traditional way to do it. It looks very, very becoming on bald heads, but that's what we'll do. We'll put a sprinkle of ashes up there, and we're also going to look at the possibility of little packets of ashes to be taken home and perhaps shared with your family members, having a time for family prayer. So we're looking into that. We'll give you more details when the time comes. Here's the thing, for Ash Wednesday, we need to make the ashes, which means we need old palms. And some of you may know this, that the ashes are made from burning the palms from the year before. So as of this weekend and the next 2 weekends, if you have any old blessed palms around your place, anything that's blessed is supposed to be burned or dissolved or returned to natural elements as opposed to thrown in the garbage. So if you have old palms, please bring them in, and at the entranceway to church, there's going to be a box to collect palms. And what we're going to do is we're going to collect those palm branches and leave them for a couple of weeks. We're going to quarantine the palm branches to make sure that they're safe, and then they will be burned to prepare the ashes for Ash Wednesday. So there you go. That's where we are with that. Speaking about time marching on, I wanted to give you an update on where we are with the project of winterization. We announced several months ago that in order to be good stewards of our resources and to minimize the cost of the great number of buildings that we have and that we're responsible for, we were going to winterize the St. Paul's location and the Immaculate Conception location, 2 buildings on each of those locations, a total of 4 buildings. It was a complicated process with many factors, and I'm pleased to tell you that the remaining 2 or 3 things have been taken care of. We started the winterization process in November. We completed it 1 week ago today when we finally turned off the natural gas at the St. Paul's location. So the heat is turned off. We still have the power to operate the sub pump because there's a little stream that runs underneath the church. And we are doing weekly checkups on the buildings to make sure that they're safe and they're not being damaged by the winterization process. One of the issues we had at Immaculate Conception, we finally were able to complete the winterization in the parish glebe. I want to give you a little update about that, because since a priest has not been living in the glebe, and I think it's going on 30 years, that rectory, or glebe house as it's often called, was used as a rooming house, as a source of income for the parish, and was managed by a family, and then eventually in time managed by a parishioner called Thelma. Many of you know Thelma. But over the last number of years, the building had fallen into disrepair and was receiving less and less tenants. And actually, before I arrived here, the decision was made to actually no longer rent rooms in this building, primarily because of health issues and safety issues. That the building really was, actually, if you've seen it, you would be embarrassed. So it was decided for health reasons that we would shut this down. And a conversation was had with Thelma back in the summer. And then when we sought to winterize, we were working towards that. And we actually were very concerned about Thelma to make sure that she was able to secure a new place to live before we completed the process. So we did work with her. We wrote letters to the city to help secure a new place. Thankfully, she was able to get a new apartment, a wonderful new apartment, and we helped her move. And at the end of December, we completed that process by turning off the water and other things. But we couldn't move too quickly on that because we needed to make sure that Thelma was looked after before we finished the whole project. So I'm happy to tell you, as of last week, it's finished, it's done, it's winterized, all 4 buildings, and they will remain so until May, when we plan to reopen the 2 churches, the 2 church buildings, for the celebration of the Eucharist. Speaking of the celebration of the Eucharist, we still have the 4 weekend masses, and we have 5 weekday masses. 2 of the weekday masses at St. Anthony's location, 3 at St. Peter's location. As I shared with you this weekend, after every single celebration of the Eucharist, the whole church effectively needs to be wiped down. It's actually a lot of work. And you have been so incredibly generous these past few weeks in stepping up and helping volunteer in different aspects of parish life. But we still need help with the hospitality team and with COVID for cleaning and such. And so this is an occasion where we need everyone to step up, really. If you come to church and you enjoy the celebration of the Eucharist, please, we'd love for you to step up and offer to help out. This needs to be a team effort. And all that work behind the scenes is to make sure that we maximize the chance that coming to celebrate the Eucharist is safe. It's a safe environment. So for everyone else who's concerned about that, please know that we're doing our best to make it a safe environment. And we look forward to everyone, returning to celebrate the Eucharist with us. I had a lot of great feedback this weekend from my homily on fishing and fish things in general. And if you haven't seen the homily video yet, check it out. It was sent out, I think, yesterday. It should be in your inbox. I'd love for you to listen to that homily. It talks about a plan for the parish for after Easter. It's something that I think will help to unite and focus the parish and bring us together and help us move into the future. So please check that out. Today, as I share this video with you, we celebrate in the church the Feast of the Conversion of St. Paul. St. Paul is the only saint for whom we have a feast for his conversion. The conversion of St. Paul was huge for the early church, because St. Paul was a member of the Pharisees. He was highly educated. He was a A+ student of one of the best teachers. He was full of zeal for the Jewish faith and actually sought to persecute the early church. And his massive conversion had sent shockwaves throughout the church. It was kind of like, imagine, Richard Dawkins, overnight becoming a Catholic and going on radio stations and telling everyone about Jesus. That's the kind of thing that happened with St. Paul. But the heart of this feast day reminds us that the heart of our faith is about conversion to the person of Jesus Christ, to come to know Jesus, to encounter him, and to come into relationship with him. That's what this feast day is all about. And the initiative we hope to have after Easter is all about that. So that's today's feast day. It is the Feast of the Conversion of St. Paul. On the more secular front, January 25th, in the church, it's the Feast of the Conversion of St. Paul. For people of good taste and people of culture, especially those of Scottish culture, recognize that today is also a special feast day. And of course, feast has to do with sitting down and having a lovely meal. And I'm referring to what in Scotland we call Rabbi Burns Day, the poet Robert Burns. Now, be quite clear that we don't call him in Scotland Bobby Burns or Robbie Burns. It's Rabbi Burns, R-A-B-B-I-E. Rabbi Burns was a great Scottish poet, So it's a custom to enjoy some haggis, which is a Scottish health food. With that, you have what's called neeps and tatties. Neeps are turnips and tatties are potatoes. Delicious. And I promise you, next New Year, once we get out of this pandemic, for the last number of years in my parish, I've always had a New Year's levy, but we have haggis, neeps and tatties. So just wait for that. Just wait for it. It's delicious. But I want to finish my message to you today by reading to you from one of Robert Burns's more famous poems. It's called To a Moose. Now that's not a moose, that's not a Canadian moose. This is a Scottish moose, a wee moose. A Scottish moose is a wee moose, a wee mouse. And this is called Ode to a Mouse. And I want to read a few verses of this poem to you. I think you'll get the drift because it speaks about the small creature's experience of being powerless in the wake of environmental change that comes crashing in. Sound familiar? And how fragile our existence is. So here it goes. Wee sleekit cowrin timorous beastie, oh what panics in thy breastie. Thou needna start awa sae hasty wi bickering brattle. I would be laith to rin and chase thee wi murdering prattle. That means, under normal circumstances, I'd probably chase after you with a shovel. And anyway, never mind. But the poet actually has sympathy for the little mouse. And this is how the poem ends. But mousie, thou art no thy lane, in proving foresight may be vain. The best laid schemes o' mice and men gang after gley, and leaves naught but grief and pain for promised joy. Still, thou art blessed compared wi' me. The present only toucheth thee, but och, I backward cast my ee on prospects drear, and forward though I cannae see, I guess and fear. So unlike the mouse who only lives in the present moment, we can sometimes be trapped in the past and the dreary past. But the point is, with the Lord at our side, Jesus who says, I am with you, do not be afraid. We don't necessarily have to look into the future with fear. So thanks for taking time to listen to Coffee with Father James. And maybe in honor of Rabbi Burns, you can put a wee something in your coffee.